$10 million is not just a number. It is the sound of a private jet engine warming up on a rain-slicked runway. It is the absolute silence of a paid-off mortgage in the Hamptons. It is the weight of 15 years of 80-hour work weeks, missed birthdays, and cold takeout dinners finally being lifted off your weary shoulders. But on January 15th, at exactly 9:01 a.m., when I refreshed my private wealth account and saw a standing balance of exactly $412.62, I realized that $10 million can also be a ghost. It can be a mirage. Most importantly, it can be erased by a single, innocuous sentence hidden on page 89 of a contract I thought I had mastered. My name is Julian Thorne, and I was once the golden boy of Meridian Capital. Today, I am the man who lost everything because I failed to read the fine print of my own soul. I remember the day I signed that contract. It was 5 years ago, in a glass-walled office overlooking the swirling gray fog of the New York harbor. Arthur Sterling, the CEO of Meridian, sat across from me. He didn't look like a predator. He looked like a grandfather, with his silver hair and his soft cashmere sweaters. He pushed a stack of papers toward me, a thick leather-bound folder that represented my promotion to senior portfolio manager. This was the moment. I had just closed the Phoenix project, a distressed debt acquisition that had netted the firm over $300 million in a single quarter. I was the hero of the trading floor. The bonus structure outlined in that document was legendary. It was a formula based on performance, a literal roadmap to generational wealth. I saw the numbers. I saw the percentages. I saw the word 10 million written in my mind before I even finished the first page. I had a lawyer look at it, of course. We spent 3 hours in a mahogany-lined conference room. He flagged the non-competes. He checked the vesting schedules. He ensured the clawback provisions were standard. We were looking for the lions and the tigers, the big, obvious traps that firms use to keep their talent locked in. We found nothing out of the ordinary. But we weren't looking for the spider. We weren't looking for the tiny, microscopic web spun in the corner of a subsection titled Miscellaneous Administrative Governance. I signed the paper with a Mont-Blanc pen, feeling the heavy ink flow onto the page like a blood oath. I thought I was securing my future. In reality, I was signing a death warrant for my career. For the next 4 years, I lived for Meridian. I was the first one in at 4:30 a.m., watching the Asian markets close and the European markets open. I was the last one to leave, often walking out into the eerie quiet of a midnight Manhattan. My wife, Sarah, tried to be patient. She stayed awake for the first year, waiting for me with a glass of wine and a story about her day. By the 3rd year, she was asleep by the time I got home. By the 4th year, she was barely there at all. We were living in a $12 million penthouse that felt like a very expensive morgue. I told myself it was worth it. I told myself that once the $10 million bonus hit, we would leave. We would go to the Amalfi Coast. We would reconnect. We would be human again. The year of the disaster began with a phone call. It was a headhunter from a rival firm, Blackwood International. They didn't just want me, they wanted to build an entire division around me. They offered a base salary that tripled my current one and a sign-on bonus that was staggering. But more than the money, they offered me freedom. They offered me a way out of Arthur Sterling's thumb. At Meridian, the culture had turned toxic. Arthur had become increasingly paranoid, pitting managers against one another in a gladiatorial display of corporate cruelty. I was tired of the bloodletting. I decided to make my move. I waited until my performance reviews were finalized. I waited until the board had officially approved the $10 million bonus for the fiscal year. It was all there, documented in the internal portal. Performance, exceptional. Bonus allotted, $10 million. Payout date, January 15th. I had the screenshots. I had the confirmation emails. I felt invincible. On December 1st, I walked into Arthur's office and handed him my resignation. I was professional. I offered a standard 90-day notice period. I expected a counteroffer, or perhaps a cold shoulder. I did not expect what I got. Arthur didn't scream. He didn't even look up from his computer. He just smiled, a thin, paper cut of a smile, and said, "I'm sorry to hear that, Julian. You've been a vital part of the family. We'll process your departure according to the terms of your agreement." I walked out of there feeling like I had won. I spent the next month in a state of euphoria. I bought a classic Porsche. I booked the flights to Italy. I even started looking at vineyard properties. I was so confident that I didn't even mind when HR told me I could take a garden leave for the remainder of my notice period. They told me to go home, relax, and wait for my final payout. They were so kind. They were so accommodating. It was a setup that would make a chess grandmaster weep. January 15th arrived. I woke up early, the sun hitting the skyscrapers outside my window like liquid gold. This was the day my life was supposed to change forever. I logged into my account. $412. I refreshed. $412. I called the bank, thinking there was a wire delay. They told me there were no pending transfers. I called HR at Meridian. No one answered. I called my lawyer. Within an hour, he had a letter from Meridian's legal department. It was only 2 paragraphs long, but it felt like a gunshot to the chest. The letter stated that per section 14.4, subparagraph C of my employment agreement, my eligibility for any discretionary or performance-based compensation had been nullified due to a failure to maintain institutional harmony during the transition period. I froze. Institutional harmony? What did that even mean? I grabbed my original contract from the safe and flipped to the back. I searched through the legalese, past the bold headings and the clearly defined terms. And there it was, tucked between a clause about office equipment and a paragraph about jury duty waivers. The clause read, "The company reserves the right, in its sole and absolute discretion, to adjust, reduce, or eliminate any pending bonus payments if the employee engages in conduct that, while not rising to the level of cause, is deemed by the executive committee to be detrimental to the institutional harmony or the long-term reputational interests of the firm. Such determination shall be final and non-reviewable." I felt the floor drop away. I had done nothing. I had resigned quietly. I had been a model employee. But that was the trap. The clause didn't require me to do anything wrong. It only required Arthur Sterling to decide that my leaving was detrimental to the harmony of the firm. By leaving for a competitor, Arthur argued that I had created a vacuum that distressed the junior analysts and signaled a lack of confidence to the investors. He didn't have to prove I had stolen clients. He didn't have to prove I had leaked secrets. He only had to claim that he felt the harmony was disturbed. And because the clause said his decision was non-reviewable, I had no recourse. I spent the next 6 months and $400,000 in legal fees trying to fight it. My lawyers told me it was a losing battle. They called it a soft kill clause. It's designed to look like a standard administrative provision, but it's actually a kill switch. Most companies never use it because it's a PR nightmare. But Arthur Sterling didn't care about PR. He cared about power. He wanted to make an example of me. He wanted everyone else at the firm to see what happens when you try to walk away with the house's money. The loss was catastrophic. I had lived my life based on the certainty of that money. I had debt from the penthouse. I had commitments to the new firm that were predicated on me being a liquid multimillionaire. When the news broke in the industry that I had been stripped of my bonus, Blackwood International got cold feet. They didn't want a manager who was embroiled in a nasty legal war with the most powerful man on Wall Street. They rescinded my offer, citing a change in market conditions. In the span of 8 weeks, I went from being the $10 million man to being unemployed and radioactive. The pressure began to crack my marriage. Sarah had stuck by me through the long hours, but she couldn't stick by the shell of a man I had become. I was obsessed. I spent every waking hour reading that one sentence over and over again, as if by staring at the words long enough, they would change. Institutional harmony. Institutional harmony. The words became a mantra of my failure. We lost the penthouse. We lost the cars. Eventually, I lost her. She didn't leave because we were poor, we still had some savings, after all. She left because I had become a ghost haunted by a number that didn't exist. I moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city I used to drive through without looking. I took a job at a small boutique firm, doing the kind of grunt work I used to delegate to interns. I see my former colleagues on the news sometimes. I see Arthur Sterling being honored at galas. He looks the same. He still has that grandfatherly smile. He probably hasn't thought about me in years. To him, I was just a line item that he successfully deleted. I'm telling you this because we live in a world that worships the big picture. We focus on the salary, the title, the prestige. We sign the papers because we want the dream so badly that we refuse to see the nightmare hidden in the details. We trust that if we work hard and deliver results, the system will be fair. But the system isn't designed to be fair. The system is designed to protect the house. If you are sitting in a glass office right now, looking at a contract that promises you the world, I want you to stop. I want you to ignore the bold numbers at the top. I want you to go to the very back of the document. I want you to look for the words discretion, harmony, or subjective assessment. I want you to find the sentences that don't have clear definitions. Because that is where they hide the trap. That is where they put the clause that can turn your years of sacrifice into a zero-sum game. I lost $10 million because of a tiny clause. But the truth is, I lost much more than that. I lost my pride, my family, and 5 years of my life that I can never get back. I was so focused on the finish line that I didn't notice the ground was made of thin ice. Don't be me. Don't let your ambition blind you to the reality of the people you work for. In the high-stakes world of finance, your value is only as real as the ink on the page. And if that ink is written in a way that allows them to take it all back, then you aren't an owner. You're just a temporary custodian of their wealth. I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, reaching for a phone that isn't ringing, checking a balance that will never be there. I remember the smell of the mahogany in that conference room. I remember the weight of the Mont Blanc pen. If I could go back, I would have thrown that pen across the room. I would have walked out of that office with my dignity intact, even if it meant walking away from the money. Because at least then, the loss would have been my choice. The most dangerous part of the trap is that it relies on your own ego. Arthur knew I wouldn't challenge that clause when I signed it. He knew I was so confident in my performance that I believed I was untouchable. I thought I was too big to fail, too valuable to cheat. He used my own arrogance against me. He knew that people like us don't read the miscellaneous section because we think we're above the rules of the little people. We think the fine print is for those who aren't making the firm hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, I spend my weekends walking through the park, watching people who don't have $10 million. They look happier than I ever was. They aren't checking the Nikkei at 3 in the morning. They aren't worrying about institutional harmony. They have something that I traded away for a mirage, they have peace of mind. I am slowly rebuilding my life, but the scar of that one tiny clause will always be there. It's a reminder that in the world of high finance, the biggest threats aren't the market crashes or the bad trades. The biggest threat is the man smiling at you from across the table, handing you a pen, and telling you that you've finally made it. Every time I see a young, hungry trader talking about their massive bonus, I want to grab them by the shoulders and scream. I want to tell them to read page 89. I want to tell them that the money isn't yours until it's in an account they can't touch, and even then, you should watch your back. But I know they won't listen. They're just like I was. They see the jet, they see the penthouse, and they see the life they think they deserve. They don't see the spider in the corner. So, here is my warning to you. In your career, in your investments, and in your life, never mistake a gesture of goodwill for a legal obligation. Corporations do not have hearts, they have balance sheets. And if deleting your future makes their balance sheet look better, they will do it without a second thought. They will use your hard work to build their empire and then use a single sentence to bar you from the gates. My name is Julian Thorne, and I was ruined by a tiny clause. I am the cautionary tale. I am the man who had it all and lost it because I didn't realize that in the end, the house always wins, unless you know exactly how they've rigged the game. Be careful what you sign. Be careful who you trust. And above all, never let the glimmer of a $10 million bonus blind you to the trap that's waiting in the shadows of the fine print. The legal battle eventually ended not with a victory, but with a whimper. I ran out of money to pay the people who were supposed to save me. My lead attorney, a man who charged $1,200 an hour, looked at me with something resembling pity during our last meeting. He told me, "Julian, this isn't about justice. This is about contract law. And under the law, you agreed to let them decide your worth. You gave them the gun, you loaded the bullets, and you put your own hand on the trigger. You can't sue someone for doing exactly what you gave them permission to do." That was the hardest pill to swallow. I wasn't just a victim of Arthur Sterling, I was a victim of my own negligence. I had been so eager to reach the top that I didn't care what the ladder was made of. I had assumed that my value was inherent, but in the corporate world, value is a variable that can be redefined at any moment by those who hold the eraser. I remember my last day at the boutique firm before I decided to stop chasing the ghost of my old life. I was reviewing a contract for a junior analyst. It was a standard agreement, full of the usual promises of growth and prosperity. I flipped to the back, to the miscellaneous section. There it was. Not the exact same wording, but the same spirit. A clause about management discretion. I took a red pen and circled it. I handed it back to the kid and told him, "Ask them to define this. And if they can't, walk away." He looked at me like I was crazy. He saw the numbers at the front. He didn't see the cliff at the end. I don't know where Arthur Sterling is today. I imagine he's in a boardroom somewhere, finding new ways to maintain harmony. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I need all the energy I have to keep moving forward. I've learned to live with less. I've learned that a $400 balance isn't a death sentence, just as a $10 million balance isn't a guarantee of happiness. But sometimes, when the wind blows cold off the river and the lights of the financial district flicker in the distance, I think about that one tiny clause. I think about how different my life would be if I had just insisted on one more meeting, one more revision, or had the courage to say no. The hidden trap didn't just ruin my finances, it changed the very fabric of who I am. I am more cautious now. I am more cynical. But I am also more awake. To everyone watching or listening to this, your ambition is a powerful tool, but it can also be a blindfold. Don't let the dream of wealth lead you into a nightmare of your own making. Read every word. Question every ambiguity. And never, ever assume that a company's loyalty to you will ever match your loyalty to them. In the end, you are the only person who will truly look out for your interests. The tiny clause is waiting for you. It's sitting there, quietly, in the dark corners of your next big opportunity. Find it before it finds you. As I sit here now, reflecting on the wreckage of what used to be a spectacular career, I realize that the most expensive thing I ever bought wasn't the penthouse or the Porsche. It was the lesson I learned for $10 million. It's a lesson I'll be paying for the rest of my life. The world of high finance is a beautiful, shimmering ocean, but don't forget that it's filled with predators who have spent decades perfecting the art of the kill. They don't need to bite you, they just need you to sign on the dotted line. I used to think that success was about how much you could gain. Now I know that true success is about how much you can keep. Not just the money, but your integrity, your time, and your freedom. Don't let a hidden trap take those away from you. Because once they're gone, no amount of money in the world can buy them back. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and always, always read the fine print. Your future depends on it more than you can possibly imagine. The silence of my bank account that morning was the loudest thing I've ever heard. It was the sound of a door slamming shut. But today, I'm trying to open new doors. They're smaller doors, made of wood instead of glass and steel, but they lead to places where harmony isn't a weapon used by CEOs to steal your life's work. I lost $10 million, but I'm finding myself. And in the long run, maybe that's the only bonus that actually matters. But please, for your sake, try to keep the money too. Just watch out for page 89.